I was one of those kids making their own websites and totally oversharing on the internet when it actually was maybe quite dangerous. But either way, kind of extremely online ever since. And since last year and retraining myself, I've become highly interested in inclusive design and accessibility, because I don't see why only people with working eyes or working limbs or whatever else could use the internet. Anyway, so there's just one question. I think we're all okay. Oh no, that's after this bit. So yeah, the title is Easy Dark Mode with Color Scheme. And lots of people know prefers color scheme, but for some reason, less people know color scheme. So I like to let people know about it. It's just black and white, but should it be? So this is 2 of my articles I've just smashed together in the hope it makes an interesting whole. And apologies in advance for flipping between color and color, because I'm British. I find it very hard to write color without a U when it's not code. So the first thing is a question: is this all comfortable enough for everyone? Because you might suffer from migraines or epilepsy or strong astigmatism. If anyone does suffer from migraines or epilepsy, there might be a couple of pages where I tell you to look away, just in case, because it might set something off, but hopefully it shouldn't. So we kind of all know the default HTML theme. We might not think of it as a theme. We might think of it as the ugly thing we're trying to get away from most of the time, but it has a theme, and that's it. But it actually has 2 themes. It has that one as well. And it can just do that. It already has that. It's baked in. And because we do so much CSS resetting, we maybe forget that it has that theme. I mean, the first thing I tend to do is make it sans serif for a start, amongst other things. But it's, you know, it's not bad. It's pretty readable. It's a solid theme. So what we can do is we can access both of those themes really quickly. And we can throw color scheme into HTML. We don't even need to touch CSS at this point. We can just bring it in as a meta tag, color scheme, and just putting light, dark, both in there, it tells the user or the user's browser, you can view either. Depends what your prefers color scheme is. It depends what your OS setting is. Because it mostly seems to be the OS that controls this right now. I'm not sure I agree with that. I'd quite like it to be a browser button, but either way. I think there was some discussion whether light, dark, or dark light would make one or other the default, but I actually think it doesn't make any difference anymore, and nearly every computer seems to report I'm light or I'm dark rather than no preference. That's a bit up in the air. And you can, of course, put it in CSS as well. So I've written it here as root, but you could do HTML or body and it will do the same thing. So whoever comes to your site, depending on what mode they're in, I appear to be in dark mode at the moment. Oh yes, I'm not on my Windows computer. I can quickly flip the modes, right? Excuse me. If I go to dark, oh no, we're in dark because it's auto and it's nighttime. Let's go back. There we are, so it's white. So maybe the easier way for me to do this would be to bring it up here and go to, where is it? Somewhere there's the rendering doodad. Does anyone remember where that is?
Command Shift P and then search rendering.
That might be a way of doing it. Rendering. Thank you. Excellent. So it's down here. I can. So the browser can do it. We could say in the browser, I would prefer to have it light, or I'd prefer to have it dark.
There's actually a button.
Is there a button?
Yes, just below the dome breakpoint. The very top panel. Lower in the very middle, there's a panel. Styles computer layout, dome breakpoint, and just below, yes, this one to the right.
Oh, yes. Really? Oh, there we go. Learn something new every day. Thank you. Yes. Okay, every day is a school day. So this is currently done. There's loads commented out here. Try to ignore the commented stuff for the moment. And I've commented this because technically in CodePen, your head HTML is here, but this has this tag in it. And I've got a few buttons that, let's have a look, where is this? Because I guess this is this shadow DOM here? In this head is somewhere, excuse it for being a bit small. It's plopped it in there, color scheme. And I can use JS to switch it to just light or just dark or auto, and then it does both. So that's one way to implement it. I've also got this here. If you do it in HTML, if you do it in CSS, sorry. You know, I want command, not control. That seems to not allow me to use my buttons anymore. The CSS seems to override the meta tag, which is interesting. So then if you want your buttons to work, you then need to start looking at the styles, which you can't see because they're right down here. Either way, you can use JS to flip them just from dark mode to light mode, or you can just have light, dark, and let your users OS decide. I think they should be able to decide as well, but either way. So that's how you can implement it. I need to get back here, brilliant. So the other thing you can do is you can apply it just to elements. You don't have to apply it to the whole page. So for example, you might want to keep your header and footer the same, just a particular theme that works for dark and light, and then only change the contents in main where all your reading text is and all the stuff that you want people to spend time on. But because elements are transparent by default, they do need to have a background color. But of course, if you give them white or black or light gray or dark gray, then they're stuck there unless you do media queries. But what you can do is use these system colors. And there's canvas, canvas text, current color, which is not quite a system color, but it carries the color of your current text. So if your text is switching, your current color switches with the text. It's probably is understandable. Canvas is always like your background color, your default background color. Canvas text is always your default text color. And oh, excuse me. So here's one implementation of it. All right, let's get my little brush out. Now I know how to do the brush. So we can have dark and light, and this thing in the middle here, this other content, I've called div reverse, just has canvas for color and canvas text for background color. So it's just using the opposites, because you can, and flip them to and fro. And then so the navigation and title and the links, which aren't there, you can just leave the same and switch everything else, because you might find that's nicer that way. I'm open to any questions at any point, by the way. Let's see. No, there. I did at some point get a bit frustrated, but yeah, I know it's on Twitter, I'm sorry. That some of the system colors, like there's loads of these system colors. So we've got canvas and canvas text, and they're pretty solid. This is only Firefox, and it's Brave at this point, but no Chromium. Oddly, when you ask a system color for the link text and the visited text in here, it gives you those which are awful on black. But if you actually put link text and visited text in the page, it's fine. So somehow their system colors are not linked up to what they say they are, which is, it may have improved by now, but it was something that annoyed me last year. So just to be aware that it's not a perfect thing. But canvas and canvas text seem to be pretty solid so far. So relationship to prefers color scheme. I mean, it's quite obvious, it does most of it for you. You do end up using bits of JavaScript to switch them manually, because you want people to be able to toggle it themselves. They might have a dark theme, but they're like, actually, I want to read this in light, and I don't want to switch my whole theme. So offering a toggle is a good thing. Doesn't like me being there. Okay. But one nice benefit of using color scheme when you are switching and when you are toggling between dark and light is it takes all the form elements with you and various other little elements that you come across when styling dark mode, and you're like, oh, it's still light. Oh, that's so annoying. Oh, it's just glaring. And color scheme does nearly all of it for you. So if you're going to switch to dark mode, switch that as well first, and then build on top of that, because otherwise you're just doing twice the work. Yeah, so contrast levels. The default themes are pretty stark because they're pretty black-white. And it has its place, because if you're looking through cataracts or if you've got vision that's not entirely corrected by glasses, it's likely to be fuzzy. So the more contrast, the better in this particular case. But they can cause discomfort. And it's, yeah, we all want to be comfortable. Even I find them really completely black, completely white is just uncomfortable for me as a fairly normal visioned person. So for other people, it might not be, for example, people who get migraines and other things. And there is some irony here, because I'm wearing a black and white t-shirt. It's a black and white thing, but it's not quite black and white. I tried to temper it a little bit. And then, you know, really, this is white, and that's white, and that's white. It's just shadows in this case. And when you read a book, unless you're in the brightest sunshine, at which point you're probably not reading the book because it's too bright anyway, it's all shades of grey. So we could probably work all in shades of grey anyway. So just a little thing, why should we temper the black and white, apart from it being clearly uncomfortable? I just wanted to make it clear what things can affect what. So some people have floaters, which some of you may have, which is just when the vitreous jelly has started to, I don't want to say degrade, but it starts moving around and separating slightly. And it's those pieces or the edges between pieces that people can see. And if they've got a really bright light in front of them or they're looking up at the sky, you can see these floating shapes. And then astigmatism is the cornea and the lens is a slightly odd shape. It makes glares and, well, I'm about to show you pictures anyway, but points of light and darkness can have long and annoying glares coming out of them. So for example, actually somebody who has them told me it's more like that second picture. And it's not often that's quite high contrast for floaters, I understand, but they can be quite in the way. For example, and I think that's also quite a high contrast example, but if you imagine you had like a whole page of black on white text, and these things are just sort of moving in front of it, that's going to get annoying and probably cause you headaches after a while. And then astigmatism. Someone who has quite severe astigmatism showed me this picture, and I was like, that's just windscreen wipers. But that, I mean, you can see the second one there, right? But that's one effect it can have. And he's like, well, whatever has caused it in that picture, this is what I see if he takes his glasses off. And he still has some effect, even with his glasses on. Similarly, that seems to be some kind of, something held in front of a lens to simulate astigmatism, I think. And then there's a whole load of people on the internet who are clearly quite angry about dark mode, because there's so many of these things. So many people comment on my light color scheme. This is what dark mode looks like to some people with astigmatism like me. And you don't have to read all that. But I'll share the slides later if you really want to. And it gets even worse when you have lines of text, because what to you are nice bullet points are completely legible and migraine inducing to me. So when you tell me just read the slide, I want to scream. And this is me. I am the douchebag who makes people read white text in a black background. So tempering is a good thing. This was another thing I came across. So people who have migraine, they tested controls, so people without migraine, who don't suffer migraine, and sufferers, for their aversion to contrast based on the movement of a grating pattern. I'll show the pattern in a minute, but I just want it to be quick because it's a bit like jarring. So just to see that this grating, which is a load of black and white lines, and these are contrast percentages. The controls would be like, no, stop. And that static contrast, that drifting contrast, and that vibrating contrast. And then the people with migraine obviously were like, they stopped being happy at lower levels of contrast. I'm about to show the grating. If anyone suffers migraines or just it might affect you, just look away. It's a bit like that. I find it jarring just by myself. I just don't like it. But I am about to show a drifting, vibrating, and a static version of it in big. So be warned again. It is pretty jarring. It probably helps that we are looking at it as white on white effectively. So it's not quite so contrasty for you lot. But for me, actually, I'm finding it not nice to look at it on my screen. And we can whiz it away. And that's unpleasant. We can scroll. And that's still pretty unpleasant. Drifting. Just as a quick example of the sort, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just not nice, right? So I'll get rid of that. Where are we? So even for us, or for me, I'm finding that uncomfortable. So if there's someone who actively suffers migraines, or even only occasionally suffers migraines, and then comes across something like that, it's no fun. Ravelry had a bit of trouble a couple of years ago. So in 2020, just as everyone was busy knitting and crocheting and using it to like lower their stress. I don't know if anyone knows Ravelry. It's like a massive database of crochet and knitting patterns. And you can input your yarn, and you can input the size of your crochet hooks, and you can input the project you've made and the pictures you made, and people can go, with this yarn and this crochet hook, what can I make? Or there's billions of patterns, and lots of people will do the same pattern, and you can compare all the different patterns, and it's brilliant for people who are into yarn crafts. And lots of people were, at this point, suddenly deep in their yarn crafts because pandemic. And they obviously thought that now was a good time to redesign. And they went for the new Neue Brutalism, which is properly like black and white and sharp edges and just really like poppy. And yeah, it's high contrast, and that's really good for people who need it. But so there wasn't enough users that went, no, I can't, it's making me sick. It's giving me migraines, I can't do it. And it's not that surprising. So this is the, excuse the low resolution, I didn't have any high ones. But I think this looks like actually just default inputs. Is that default Apple inputs? I'm a Windows person, so I don't know, but it just, you know, is quite standard. And then the new one, it became Boxy Neue Brutalism, and it's all right. It's not my style, but it's all right. And then here was it was kind of trying to fit that Apple aesthetic, I guess. And then they made that quite jarring as well. And if you can imagine, you're looking down at patterns and different things you might want to make, and actually you're scrolling that. And we're getting to the drifting grating pattern. That's deeply uncomfortable, especially for migraineurs. I think I had a link to my Ravelry, but oh no, it's not mine. Guest user. I wanted to show you a grid. Never mind, whatever. But you can see it's quite harsher than it used to be. Yeah, apologies for. There we go. So can we still lean on color scheme? Because it just does a big dark and a big light. And it's just like, well, if people are uncomfortable with that, what's the point, right? Yeah, but we can. So there are ways of tempering it. And this is really simple. And there are probably better ways. But just as some examples, you can have elements of low opacity background colors, which just sit on top of the dark or the light. Or you can use color mix, which is good fun. And you can mix it with canvas. So you can mix any color on top of canvas or canvas text. Or you can do a filter. So another example. I should have left it in dark mode, I'm sorry. What I did here's a new one. Come on, there we go. So that is just, it has main, reverse, main, color, it's just got pink or magenta at a low opacity. And if I go to my friend over here, it's still quite pleasant in dark mode. Haven't had to change that color, it's just there, right? Here on div reverse, so that's currently this white bit in the center. There I've used color mix. So it's color mixed with navy, just a half and half. That's not great contrast actually. So maybe it should be like, I don't know, 30 or something. And then we switch again. and then it's ever so slightly navy. So you can do these sort of tempering acts. What else did I do? I'm sure there's another one. Here we are. And our background is slightly brown. And we go to the other preference. And it's slightly brown. So it's a bit tempered, a bit easier on the eye. And that, you know, you've only started once and color scheme flips the rest. You don't have to write things multiple times in multiple classes. It's pretty nice. Pardon me. So that's those examples. And so I decided that the main thing here is choice. If we can do the theming so easily and quickly. Oh, hang on, I forgot one thing. Hang on. I'm fairly sure. Yeah, here. There is a preferred contrast as well. Maybe not everyone's seen the preferred contrast, but as well as prefers color, there's also a prefers, I just need to find it. Prefers color scheme. Oh, excuse me. Can anyone see it? Have I scrolled right past?
You can search for it.
I can, can't I? There's a prefers contrast. Okay, so you can have more, which I haven't set anything for. Custom, I've not set anything for, but less, I've got a nice little filter across the whole thing. So if someone comes across and is a migrainer, I know one woman who has this in her injected CSS. She can just turn on the filter for nearly every website, especially dark mode ones, because they're just too much. But you can provide that as well. Just filtering the entire page. I just pulled contrast down on everything. Where it doesn't do so well is if the background is just going on the color scheme. So you kind of need to set canvas or canvas text for that to work, because otherwise it's not working on anything, it's working on the transparency. Yeah, so I'd like to think the main thing is choice. If we can do this dark light theming so easily and the lowering the contrast so easily, maybe we can just toggle it and let people have the choice. I would still follow everyone's OS preferences first. You can probably safely assume that if they've set their device to dark, then dark is the safe option for them to see, especially for, you know, lying in bed. Providing a high contrast mode or providing a lower contrast mode to those that need it is really helpful. There's so many websites, including one of mine, which is like defaulting to dark mode, but I try and temper it. And then being able to toggle them on and off, because not everyone knows exactly, I didn't know those things are in the dev tools, that I can toggle my own websites, or that I can go into my OS settings to toggle it. I might not even know it's probably set to auto and I've never checked it. Lots of users are like that. Yeah, I would just like to hopefully have offered you an easier way to offer choice. And then that's it. If there's no questions, it's better. No, go on.
First of all, thank you.
Pleasure.
Second, Hauptsache Choice is a great title for a talk, for a conference talk. User preferences is it. And I know that you've written about the topic, also in HTML, and I read it. I secretly, but never tried it. So here's my question. You set color scheme in HTML, and then what I typically do, because I learned that you should set the background color on the body. I set the background color on the body, white, for example, or whatever, grayish, doesn't matter. And then I also set the color, because that's what you usually do, like define the color of text, and usually don't want to default to the default black. It looks kind of like because you want to temper it, like just explain. But if I do that, then I'm overwriting both for the light and the dark mode, right?
Yeah, it's I've seen it written that, you know, you must set your background color because forced colors can mess it up. But if someone's forcing colors, they want them, right? I feel like it's a gray area. In that, so I wrote one of his advent calendar doodads for last year, and it was just color scheme. And in there's a picture of the BBC website, and I plopped in the meta tag, and the whole background went dark. Some of the text went light to match it, a lot of the text stayed dark. So they'd obviously set their color at some point, their main text color, but they'd not set the background. So I kind of, as long as you do it knowing what you're doing, I think it's okay. But it must be annoying for people who want specific colors, and maybe they've actually set forced colors on their system, and they want that for every website, but it doesn't work because everyone set their colors. You know.
Maybe to rephrase it, like what I'm trying to say is challenging the usefulness of the meta tag if you're writing CSS. If you're not writing CSS, if you just have an HTML document, then it makes sense because then you're providing options directly. But especially if you write a lot of CSS and complex CSS, at some point you will add your background colors and your foreground colors and so on based on the color scheme that you have in your design. And then you're basically overriding the default colors, whether it's dark or light. Is this correct?
I think so. But if you're doing it based on the user preference, and when you are writing your dark mode, you also set color scheme dark, you just get, you know, all the nice little wiggly UI bits like the inputs and stuff for free. You can still do all your media queries and you can still do your toggling. It just, when you're in dark mode, if you set color scheme dark, you're just going to get some freebies as well.
So we need both. Like it's a good baseline, but in the end, probably here and there you need CSS to tweak stuff and optimize.
Yeah, I mean, if you just did it by itself, you'd have a very quite dull website. I kind of did do that. Where am I? So I'm kind of lost because I didn't expect it to be on this. Where am I? What is this? It's not. Yes, right, there we go. What was I about to show you? Oh yeah. I tried to do it here. I was playing with light dark mode and I haven't actually made that button work yet. Never mind. I did do it on this website and you can see there's like at the bottom of this picture, I've attempted to do a very gently colored element. It does end up quite boring doing that, just doing color mix, and you end up with just shades of dark and shades of white. Yeah, and so it's kind of less cool. So I think you would do all your styling and you do as much creative stuff as you can. It's just going to save you some work to begin with.
The other thing that I want to say is, you know, color mix is supported in all browsers. It is like I just looked it up. I'm surprised. Once again, they just shipped it.
Yeah, yeah, I looked it up as well because I was like, I'm not sure, but it appears to be can I used across the board now.
In Safari, it's starting with 16.2, so you probably can't use the same flavors, at least all of them support.
Yeah, but yeah. Just play with it. I found it amazing to play with, that I could just like, oh, there's dark mode. Oh, I don't need to do it all myself. Oh, wicked. Anything else?